Welcome to today's masterclass. My name is Lisa Richter, and I will be your host today. On the off chance that you don't know about CSIA, we are a global nonprofit trade association with over 500 member companies in 35 countries. For system integrator members, the CSIA Best Practices Manual and CSIA certification are some of the more popular member benefits, but you will also enjoy a variety of others, including professional development, learning from your peers, and access to professional services experts, including insurance, financial, and legal, who understand the SI's unique business needs. For partner members, CSIA offers an ecosystem to grow your SI programs, understand your customers' pain points, monitor industry trends, and share your thought leadership. With thousands of qualified integrators and suppliers, the CSIA Industrial Automation Exchange helps SIs, industry suppliers, and manufacturers connect and do business. For SIs and partners, it provides a platform to support your content and SEO marketing efforts, position yourself as a thought leader, and nurture prospects during their complicated buyer's journey. In case you aren't a current member or haven't renewed your membership, now is a great time to join and renew. Membership provides you many benefits, including a full lineup of virtual events and other resources for you and your entire team, from accounting to sales to operations, 365 days per year. Members can also take advantage of discounted registration rates for the in-person CSIA Executive Conference scheduled for June 27th through the 30th in Denver. At this time, I would like to turn it over to today's speakers. Take it away, guys.
Thank you, Lisa. We are certainly looking forward to the summer CSIA Executive Conference. It's going to be good fun for everyone and full of great information and presentations. All right, today, everyone, thank you for attending this webinar. My name is Scott Kaiser. I'm with Iconics. We'll be talking about hardening your system against cyber threats. Presenting with me is Mr. Ben Burke, Chief Operating Officer of Dispel, and Mr. Yuki Shimizu, Application Engineer at Mitsubishi Electric's North American Development Center. I'm the Director of Global Partner Channels for Iconics. Our agenda today covers a brief Iconics introduction. We'll be talking about Iconics Security Suite features. We'll be talking about the OPC UA and IoT work security. Ben will be talking about Dispel and the moving target defense and remote connectivity. And we'll be doing a demo with Mitsubishi Electric, Dispel, and Iconics products. Iconics was founded in 1986. We're located in Foxborough, Massachusetts. We have system integrators, distributors, and other partners and affiliates in over 100 countries with over 400 partners. We have over 375,000 systems installed worldwide and are a 10-time Microsoft Partner of the Year award winner. Iconics has applications in a variety of industries, ranging from energy smart buildings and smart cities to industrial automation and manufacturing intelligence applications, power and water utilities, oil and gas, and public infrastructure. Many of these applications are for customers who have significant cybersecurity concerns. Of course, we all should have cybersecurity concerns in our systems and be having a layered defense, and we'll be talking about that today. But first, I want to spend a moment talking about the Iconics System Integrator program. Our program is a 4-tier program focused on enabling SIs with the right Iconics software and tools, sales support, and sales collaboration, with training ranging from classroom training to our Iconics Institute video training and advanced classes for system integrators, as well as technical support with a support portal, software maintenance, and access to our QPS, Quality Professional Services Consulting support. Finally, we promote our SIs through SI directory listings, Iconics logos and certificates. We present your success stories via our website, and we bring you to Iconics events to meet our clients. There are 2 entry levels for the Iconics SI program, ranging from our zero cost registered level, which is the entry level to the program, to our enrolled level with full access to development tools, training, and technical resources. Now let's move on to the Iconics suite and talk about cybersecurity features within our Iconics product suite. The suite's key security features are a secure by default installation, where mandatory Iconic security username and passwords are required to install the product. We have enhanced HTTPS security with our Iconic server-to-server communication via WebSockets. We offer secure web HMI and mobile HMI for your tablets and smartphones. And we support easy to manage certificates through the let'sencrypt.org. We also support security assertion markup language, SAML 2.0, and OpenID Connect identity provider for Active Directory, because many IT departments deny direct access to their Active Directories. And additionally, we support multi-factor authentication. Let's talk a moment about OPC UA security. That's important as it is an underlying layer that connects the Iconic suite to your field devices via OPC UA. The OPC UA has two key security concepts. That is a trusted information, or CIA triad. CIA in this case means confidentiality, integrity, and availability. And additionally, they support access control through a AAA principle, that being authentication, authorization, and accounting or auditability of your access to your systems. The use of OPC UA enhances your overall system security. Your layered security should be defense in depth in your cybersecurity scenarios for your systems. An example of secure OPC UA communication between our Iconic Genesis 64 product suite and a Mitsubishi PLC, a Melsec 5 FX5 PLC with a FX5 OPC UA module. There's three levels of secure OPC UA communication, starting with the application layer, where we have software authentication, user authentication, and user authorization for these UA functions at the app layer. At the communications layer, we have app authentication, encryption, and signing to protect your messages. And at the transport layer, we're using UA TCP, HTTPS binary, and XML decoding to transfer the message in a very secure way. This helps us address a number of attack scenarios for field devices connecting to your SCADA system. These range from message flooding, which we minimize the processing of packets before they're authenticated, eavesdropping, where we're using encryption, message spoofing, where we're using message signing, valid session ID, channel ID, and timestamps, etc. Message alteration and replay, where we're using session IDs, secure channel ID, timestamps, sequence numbers, and request IDs to protect your messages. And against malformed messages, where we validate the message structure and valid parameters and values, or discard the message. Additionally, there's other protection around server profiling, server hijacking, etc. Now, the OPC UA is connecting you to many field devices, but additionally, there is connecting security related to connecting from the cloud to edge devices through the Iconic IoT Works, where we have from the ground up end-to-end security from the field device, the edge device. IoT Works is built on the Azure IoT Edge software stack, where we're running on a Linux type or Windows type device as a trusted platform module, where we're leveraging device security and a secure device provisioning and authorization. Now, we're using a secure messaging over a secure internet connection from the edge device to the cloud. We're leveraging a number of protocols in that messaging, ranging from AMQP, AMQP over WebSockets, MQTT over WebSockets, and HTTPS for our connection security, leveraging certificate handshaking and data encryption for the messaging. And finally, at the cloud level, we're in the Microsoft Azure cloud, which is built from security from the ground up. And we're leveraging, in addition to Iconic Suite security, the cloud security, which is Azure Active Directory, their key vault, and policy-based access control within Azure. Now I'd like to hand it over to Ben Burke to talk about Dispel Secure Remote Access. Ben, over to you, sir.
Wonderful. And hello, everyone. My name is Ben Burke, as just mentioned, and in partnership with Iconics and Mitsubishi Electric Automation, I'm here today to discuss secure remote access, and more specifically, why efficiency demands remote connectivity, the cybersecurity risks that are associated with remote connectivity, and the protections we want to create around those risks, and how best to mitigate those risks using a next generation military grade cybersecurity posture known as moving target defense. So a bit of background about the company first. We were founded in 2014. Our primary offices are in Austin, Texas, and New York City. What we do, fast, secure remote connectivity to industrial control networks. The industries we serve, manufacturing, oil and gas, water, wastewater, energy, chemicals, pretty much anything with an operational network. And our patents involve the launch and maintenance of moving target defense software-defined wide area networks. Simply put, we built secure remote access specifically for OT environments, and we do so using next generation moving target defense techniques. So if you ever hear me say MTD, I am referring to moving target defense. And I just wanted to talk about the fact that this is not a new concept, nor is it solely our concept. This was actually called for by the Executive Office of the President back in 2011. And the goal of moving target defense is to increase complexity and cost for attackers. For those vulnerabilities where they exist, to limit their attack surface and exposure, and to therefore increase system resiliency by having a dynamism built in as a core principle. There have been many research studies about the efficacy of MTD, and really the advantage gained is that prior intelligence gained by your adversary is no longer useful. The benefit of time is no longer on their side. And so that will mean that they're going to point their cannon and fire it in the wrong direction rather than at the assets you're trying to protect. And we'll look at a cyber kill chain, but 90% of an attacker's time is spent on reconnaissance, is spent in figuring out where your network is, where the soft point might be, and how to then penetrate that network. In terms of who uses Dispel, well, it's your peers, across manufacturing, chemicals, water, wastewater, oil and gas, anybody that has an operational environment that needs remote connectivity. And we're going to talk about why you would want connectivity, all of the efficiency that you can gain. If you have that remote access, if you have that network, then you do need remote connectivity, and you can use Dispel to secure it. I do want to mention that we do adhere to the frameworks that you live in and the frameworks that you need to comply with. We don't just look at those frameworks and read them, we actually help contribute to them, right? So I am a contributing author on a few different NIST publications in conjunction with the NCCOE, the National Cybersecurity Center of Excellence. So I know, one of the ones, special publication 1800-10, talks entirely about how to control access and secure systems in industrial control environments. So in terms of what we do, there are 3 concrete use cases for remote connectivity. There's 24/7 operator access. This can be for routine management or debugging, getting the right people to the right problem or to the problem as fast as possible. If you have multiple facilities, maybe they're geographically spread across multiple countries. How do you centralize your engineering teams so that way fewer people can do more work faster, right? Or maybe you have multiple customers. How do you better support each of those deployments? The second use case, vendor access for maintenance and debugging. We hear a constant refrain from our customers that they want to standardize how vendors are entering their networks, right? It's no longer good enough to let the vendor figure it out. They have to be in control of that process, because at the end of the day, there are so many threats out there and they're liable for controlling that process. We let you get your vendors into a network as quickly as possible, but in a very controlled and tightly windowed access timeframe. And we also do then provide full session recording and auditing for compliance and audit purposes. And then the final use case is secure data streaming, right? So, obviously in partnership with Iconics, and what we talk about all the time is all that data being created on your factory floors. How is it getting out, right? How are you able to better leverage that data to make intelligent decisions based off of it? So secure data streaming is also in that portfolio of considerations. So what we replace, and we'll go through a few of these in more detail, but first, static VPNs, right? You look at the Colonial Pipelines attack. Well, how did that happen? It was a static VPN that had an unused but unsuspended account. And then, somebody in the dark web brute forced that password, sold it, and next thing you know, the bad guys are using that VPN tunnel, that static VPN tunnel, to get into a network and ransomware that network. The second, built for IT, remote access tools. In operational environments, considerations are different, right? We just talked about the fact that you might have many facilities in many different geographies, right? You have 24/7 shops where if that factory line turns off, that might be hundreds of thousands of dollars a minute that you're losing in widgets going out the door. So there are different considerations that make IT-focused tools not optimal for OT settings. The third, vendor-installed backdoors, right? Some third parties, like Iconics, care deeply about your security, and they make sure their processes put your network and your security first. In other examples, they just simply don't do that. They'll drop a cellular backhaul into a device that you didn't want them to in your network, and then next thing you know, there's a pivot point into your otherwise flat operational network. And we're going to talk about SolarWinds in a moment, but the idea of how those updates from those third parties are coming into your environment can pose a severe security risk. So then the bottom three are kind of very unique to OT, I'd say. But so first is shadow IT, right? There's some freemium model tool that is going to just plop into whatever asset you want to provide access to, and then beacon out to get somebody in quickly. Well, again, now instead of a cellular backhaul that's a backdoor in your network, you have your operators proactively putting in backdoors that are outside the scope of your security team's control. That's just not acceptable and creates severe security risks. And then the fifth and sixth, for lack of better alternatives, I'm going to force people to drive on site because I'm going to keep my network entirely offline. Well, we look at all the remote connectivity efficiencies gained, right? Those predictive analytics, then knowing how your machines are performing at any given moment in time, the proactive monitoring that you can perform, and then the centralization across many different deployments to gain, big data insights. You lose all of that if you turn your systems off to force people to drive on site. And then we won't even talk about the costs associated with that traveling or, buying laptops and shipping them out to every single vendor you work with. So how's Dispel different? Moving target defense, and we're going to talk about that in a moment. The second is alignment with the frameworks that you work with, right? So we understand that whether you're in power generation and it's NERC SIP or AWWA for water, wastewater, right? In Europe, you might see IEC 62443. In the United States, there's the NIST, CSF. There's a whole bunch of NIST frameworks. Perhaps if you are working with different government contracts, you might have CMMC. So we understand that there are different frameworks and regulations that you need to follow, and we meet you there to help you through that process. Zero trust networking and access, right? No one should have access for longer than they need and should have no more information about the assets they're connecting to than they need to perform their job function. As a hallmark of moving target defense, and this will be talked about at length, is the idea of disposable single tenant infrastructure. Think about a doctor walking into an operating room, right? I don't care how many times he's cleaned his hands, how many times he's washed it, and he may attest 6 ways to Sunday that his hands are clean. Doesn't matter. We're going to make that doctor put gloves on because that way, without a doubt, in the method that we control, we know their hands are clean. Full segmentation between corporate and OT environments. This is often not well done for a lot of our customers. So it's how do you by default segment those environments and control access into the OT network in a way that allows you to keep more or less that internetless core, but provide remote connectivity where needed. And then of course, any good tool ought to have full visibility of what's going on in your network and auditability of what happened, including session recording, so that you can learn from those vendor sessions, right? Or you can track down a problem at its source. So I want to spend a little bit more time on moving target defense and the differences between it and static defense, right? So static defense is the traditional defense in depth model. Now, I am in no way advocating that we get rid of all of the different defense in depth postures, but let's change the framework around which they're applied. Because the static defensive posture is like a sandcastle. You have to correctly predict where your enemy is coming next and then build a thicker, taller wall ahead of that attack. The problem is your sandcastle never moves. It's always going to be right there on the beach, and the endless waves of attacks are going to constantly break down and degrade your best laid plans of security policies. In an operational environment, this is very, very clear. And let's just look at a static VPN for a moment, right? The security of your static VPN is only as good as its patch against the latest zero-day threat vector. The problem is in real-time operations, I don't have time to turn off my VPN for the patches and updates that are going to keep my system safe. We take it as a business risk and as a cost of doing business that we have this exposure for a period of time until I can get to a planned maintenance window. Well, that's not great. So how do you instead change the frameworks that you're working with to build these systems to provide instead a moving target defense network that you can think of more like a submarine? So we've gone from sandcastle to submarine in an element that proactively defends itself, right? That is airtight and has a hardened shell around the entire critical assets within, but it's now moving. It's not giving your adversaries the benefit of time. It's not that same single sandcastle constantly having to predict where the next attack might be coming from. This is proactively defending itself, so your adversary doesn't even know where it exists. What does this look like from a network perspective? So it's going to be a far more complicated diagram, but actually everything inside this purple container, we'll call it, is all managed by Dispel as part of the service. So from an end user perspective, they won't notice any of this. It's a transparent backend. The next question you're going to ask is, why are we seeing cloud providers? And the answer is, if you think about how a submarine hides in an ocean, what's the best way to hide a bridge, a remote access bridge to your network? It's in the infinite cyberspace of public cloud providers, right? So that way, when your user is maybe connecting to a virtual workstation to perform their job, the rest of the world might think that they're watching Netflix, right? We can obfuscate that traffic and we can hide it in single tenant networks that are built from a collection of different virtual machines acting as traffic nodes to provide a multi-hop setup to your end assets inside the OT network. So we've gone from that single channel that is only as good as the last time it was patched to a dynamic system that is changing day over day, and again has disposability as a core concept. So we're applying those patches and updates at a traffic node perspective, so that way you don't need to think about it, right? We're employing the N+1 zero trust node acknowledgement, so that way those hops are not telling anybody anything about your network. It's an entirely different private IP space. And of course, then we integrate and we build in the tools that you need. So for example, on a Windows virtual desktop workstation, if you need to use Genesis 64 to configure and control different systems down at the OT layer, we can absolutely do that. If you need IoT works deployed alongside the local gateway that Dispel provides, we can absolutely do that. We can do that both on general hardware that's Linux based. We can also do that. We can deploy the Dispel wicket on localized Mitsubishi electric automation modules, alongside Iconics and IoT works on the MI 1000, 2000. We also have wickets deployed on small PLCs like the RD55 Intelligent C module. So there's a lot of flexibility in how you're deploying this single gateway, and then we take care of the rest from a managed service perspective up at the cloud level. So a bit of background about the shift from static defense to moving target defense. Now I want to talk more about cybersecurity writ large and the industry that we're working in and where we are in 2022. So the answer is, we're not in a great spot. There are a bunch more attacks, and new study from Positive Technologies talking about pen testing. In 93% of cases, an external attacker can breach an organization's network perimeter and gain access to local resources. This is especially important in operational networks because those devices, they weren't created with cybersecurity in mind. They were created sometimes, 5, 10, 15, 20 years ago, and have another 5, 10, 15, or 20 years of their life cycle still ahead of them. So they are the soft underbelly, they are the soft underbelly of operation of the cybersecurity world, and attackers are focusing their effort on them. In terms of attack frequency, across the big ones that I always point to, utilities, manufacturing, up 41, 46, and 41% respectively. But across the entire, span of industry verticals, many of whom that you work with or are, right, attacks are up. And there's more automated ways for attackers to get and find your perimeters and find ways into them. So it's how do we push that perimeter away from a static model to a proactively defensive moving target model. I want to go into a few attacks just to talk about them kind of at a high level and what we can think about and do differently, right? So SolarWinds, the attack was an update to the Orion software they were deploying for customers. The cost, it's not a known cost. I can't quantify it with a dollar value for you, but I can say that around the 18,000 customers that could have been affected. So what happened? Well, hackers, believed to be Russian, used routine software updates, right? So talking about patch management, how are we putting patches into our systems and deploying those to production? They were able to slip malicious code into that software update and then used the general update mechanism as a way to spread their attack to all of those customers. Now, this WCYDD, it's the what could you do different, right? So the first is, nothing to do with Dispel, right? It's really take a hard look at patch management and take a hard look at updates that are coming into your operational environments. Where and how can you test those in a separate sandbox, right? I do know certain networks will have fully replicated digital twins or sometimes physical twins. So that way we can have systems, new patches, new updates run against those twin systems for up to 6 months before getting promoted to production. Now, obviously there are budget constraints around all of that. So it just means be thoughtful about how you are applying and implementing these updates. The second is the attack only worked if you had internet access. And I say this, and I know your first inclination is going to say, well, great, let me just turn off all internet to all of my OT systems. But that's not the answer, right? The answer is to be more thoughtful about which assets have internet access and how remote connectivity might be established. Because you can keep a siloed network and in a very controlled manner, control data flow in and out, right? Maybe most machines, most PLCs don't need internet access, but you might need remote connectivity to get OPC information out. You might need remote connectivity to get a third-party vendor in to help you maintain or debug a problem. So it's just be thoughtful about that. If you stick your head in the sand here, you're just going to watch your competitors pass you by. And that's really towards the third point, right? It's what does moving target defense allow you to do? It's a cloud-based SD-WAN. So it pushes that perimeter out into the cloud and prevents any traffic that's not allowed, explicitly allowed, from getting to your perimeter. And it also allows you to keep on the other side, in the OT perspective, right? All systems offline, except for those that need to actively transfer data out. And you can do so through that same obfuscated moving target defense network. The next attack I want to talk about is the Brenntag attack, right? The cost was $4.4 million and attack type ransomware. So DarkSide purchased RDP credentials for an account that did not have 2FA and was publicly accessible. So kind of all of the checkboxes of what not to do, and then ransomed, I think it was 150 gigabytes of data. So what could you do different? First, identify all OT devices and make sure they are siloed, that they do not have exposed interfaces. right? Part of our deployment with all of our customers is segmenting that OT network and saying that none of them should have publicly accessible interfaces. All remote connectivity should be brokered through known and controlled checkpoints. And that includes OEM backdoors, right? That includes the cellular chip beacon or the shadow IT that would otherwise invite bad actors in. The second is adopt remote access and remote connectivity tools. You know, Scott mentioned earlier, right? The enforcement of MFA, of two-factor authentication. Where can you find tools that proactively do that for you and help you comply with, I mean, MFA is, you know, the easiest, biggest thing to cut down on threat vectors. But so it's how do you find tools that proactively help you on that journey? And, you know, for this one, right, the idea of publicly available is different from remotely accessible. So again, with moving target defense, if you can push that perimeter out, it allows you to frustrate attackers. They can't figure out where you're going, but the people who need to access those assets still can. And, you know, again, attackers, they're looking for easy, fast money, right? As part of the ransom, Brentag asked DarkSide, well, how did you do this? How did you break into my network? And the answer was, we didn't have to try that hard. We looked around and we bought the access credentials. And so we just bought access to your network. Now, if you had 2FA, so second factor of authentication on your accounts, if you had backups of your systems, then you become the expensive person. So if you invest in this, you become expensive to attack. And right now, attackers are looking for the fastest buck they can make. As a final part of the cybersecurity part of this conversation, I want to just mention, right, that CISA has, you know, the US Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency has issued a Shields Up alert. So every organization in the country ought to know that given the Russian invasion of Ukraine, right, there are absolutely threats being enacted against different targets in the United States, on a larger scale than normal. So I do want to just make sure that everyone, if they haven't seen this, please go take a look at it, and please make sure that you are doing at least the bare minimum to put your shield up. And that website is cisa.gov/shields up. So I've talked a lot about cybersecurity, but I want to say that the point here is it's secure enough, right? Remote connectivity that has security built in by default. So that way you can comply with your IT teams, your auditing teams, and the security frameworks you work with. But it can't be inefficient. It needs to be fast enough to make operational relevance. Because again, remote access systems, remote connectivity, it's not a cybersecurity tool. It's an efficiency tool with a critical need to be cyber secure. And so to just look at this for a moment, right? An unsecure connection time might take 3 to 5 seconds. That's your RDP to whatever workstation you have on-prem. Once you start to layer in maybe some of the different framework methodologies for doing this, the fear is that you balloon that process to 7 to 12 minutes, not to mention the administrative overhead of constantly updating different rule sets, right? So how do you effectively do that? Bring these two together and do that at scale. And that's what Dispel does. We get you to the assets in less than 30 seconds, but comply with the strictest frameworks that you need to across a number of industry verticals. So it's fast enough for OT, but has all the guardrails and is secure enough for IT and cybersecurity. And so with that, I know we're going to go jump into a demo. So this demonstration is in partnership with, again, Mitsubishi Electric. You're going to see Yuki in a moment at the North American Development Center. And of course, we're going to be using Dispel's technology as well as Iconic's Gen 64 and GraphWorks on a virtual desktop to connect to and control a Mitsubishi Electric PLC. Hi, everyone. My name is Ben Burke, and today we're here to talk about secure remote access. And specifically, we're going to demonstrate a remote user connecting to a local PLC system and controlling and operating a crane. So this demonstration is brought to you in partnership with Dispel, Iconics, and Mitsubishi Electric Automation. To give you a quick bit of background of what's going to happen, we of course have our remote user that's going to connect to a Dispel moving target defense network. Within that network, they're going to connect to a virtual desktop that has been customized with Genesis 64 on it. And using Genesis 64, they're going to control via that moving target defense network a remote crane located in the lab in the NADC office where you can see Yuki sitting right now. So with that, I'm going to turn things over to Yuki to explain, as he has all the materials in front of him, what exactly is what for our demonstration.
Right, thank you, Ben. Hello, everyone. I'm Yuki, an application engineer of the Mitsubishi Electric Automation Boston R&D Center. I'm responsible for commercializing the integrated solution of Mitsubishi Electric hardware and Iconics platform with our partner, like Dispel. Today, we'd like to focus on remote secure operation for automation system. Our goal is in the demonstration is to control OT system remotely through Dispel secure system called moving target defense from remote client system. At the end of this demonstration, you will see a remote worker Ben operates this crane system from his laptop PC with Dispel secure system. This demonstration can be broken into two parts. First, the on-premise OT network shown here, the Mitsubishi Electric Programmable Logic Controller IQR series. In this PLC, we have two types of devices. One is C Intelligent Module Linux base equipped with Dispel remote access software. Another one is a CPU here. This is responsible for operating the final device crane. It's going to be rotating at the end point. To divide network in Dispel section on C Intelligent Module here, there are two Ethernet cable you can see. One is for internet, means outside of on-site system, blue cable. It connects to MTD network. Another one, this green cable goes to on-site system, means OT network. We are connecting to crane control systems through PLC. The second part is the remote access section. Our operator, Ben, will use Dispel connect to Iconic SCADA software Genesis 64 in a virtual desktop, which is pre-connected to the MTD network and connected to PLC to operate our crane system. All right, Ben, you're ready to show the demonstration, please.
So to start, a user must go to the console and log in. In this case, I have my virtual desktop user. They're going to log in, and in addition to their username and password, maybe an integration with Microsoft Single Sign-On, they must also provide a two-factor code. We provide integrations with both temporary one-time passwords or hardware tokens like YubiKeys, so on and so forth. So I'll grab that code and we'll go in and get my virtual desktop. Before I get access to that virtual desktop, I have to request access. So I have to confirm who I am, my reason for access. In this case, we'll just say a demonstration. And then most importantly, until when do I need access? So that might be for your vendors, your third parties, that might be maybe a week-long project. It might be an hour-long project. You get to ask them to decide how long they need access for. So that way at the end of this time window, their access is automatically revoked and they enter a suspended state. This is to account for and combat attack vectors like the Colonial Pipeline attack, where if someone locally does not remember to suspend an unused account, it can be used as a backdoor into your network. So I have my request and I can fire that off to an administrator and they'll get an email to approve that. If they don't get that email, you can also have a redundant method of sending over that access control link. And so once that's been approved, I can quickly refresh my screen and I immediately get that virtual desktop. So again, this is a single-use virtual desktop. Think of it like a pair of disposable gloves that you put on before interacting with a customer's network. Once I get my virtual desktop, I can click Quick Connect and that downloads the profile for my VDI. And more importantly, it pushes my profile to the virtual desktop. So it handles all the pre-networking, the access control list for that VDI, and it tells the virtual desktop to allow connections from my IP address. So I'll go ahead and connect to that now. And so now on my virtual desktop, again, in this case, it's been customized with Genesis 64. So I'm going to open up that program here, and we are going to use it as a control panel to control our crane. So we'll be able to see the crane status. And then in this case, let's go ahead and turn that crane right. We see that that's running, and we see it rotating on Yuki's screen. And I can turn that back and forth as needed, really just demonstrating the fact that I, as the remote user, do have control over that local environment and that local crane system. Importantly, as a backend security measure, we are also recording everything that happens on these virtual desktops, both at a video level and at a traffic monitoring level. So that way, you know exactly what happened every minute that I was connected to your operational network. And that's as simple as it is. It's embedded software in a remote environment that you control, allowing you to perform command and control actions on the local operational network you need to connect to in a way that's fast and secure.
All right, thank you so much, Ben and Yuki. Impressive demo. Can you see my screen?
Not quite yet. Yep,
All
now it's
right.
coming.
Okay.
Perfect.
Well, thank you. Thank you, Ben. Impressive demo. Great technology. A few other items before we go to questions and answers. Be sure to get your questions in here before we go to Q&A session. To learn more about Iconics, especially about our technology, we have Iconics training courses, information, the syllabuses and details on the courses and schedules, as well as our Iconics Institute with the online video library. You can visit iconics.com/training. To learn more about the Iconics System Integrator program, visit iconics.com/SI. And finally, for product documentation, you can learn all about Iconics products via our online documentation at docs.iconics.com. Moving on to the Q&A session, let's jump into that and see, pick a few of our questions. Lisa?
I guess that's where I come in. Hi.
Thank you.
Of course. So let's stick with Ben for a minute and help me understand how long it might take someone to deploy Dispel. Like, what if I have multiple facilities?
Yeah. So I think from an implementation perspective, there's kind of two considerations, right? There is the on-premises implementation, which would be a single device that's either as hardware or a virtual appliance. And again, it can be installed maybe alongside IoT works in different capacities. So that process generally takes about an hour. And it might be, a half an hour to an hour per facility. You're going to want one device at each siloed network. But then all of the cloud infrastructure is dynamically built and can be built in approximately 15 minutes. So in terms of an entire, onboarding and rollout strategy, it can take you same day to get your systems up and running across multiple facilities.
The solution are cloud-based versus on-prem. Does a person have to use cloud accounts, your cloud accounts, or can they use their own?
Yeah, absolutely. So I know that I showed a whole bunch of different cloud providers on those bubbles in an earlier slide. That's really just to say that we are a cloud agnostic platform. And, we do that for cyber resiliency reasons. Obviously, there was a few years ago, I think AWS, the whole Eastern Seaboard went down, right? So it's can you recover from an outage like that in a very fast, effective time frame? So we are cloud agnostic in that way. And we are also cloud agnostic in that you can bring your own cloud accounts. Maybe, some of you guys, you are premier partners with Microsoft. So you get great deals on different virtual infrastructure. If that's true, please do bring us your cloud accounts. That's great. And we will use those instead.
So help me understand how this might be different than, say, a VPN.
Yeah. And so, I know that I've picked on static VPNs a lot, and I will continue to do so. But they're different in kind of three main ways. The first is patching and updating, right? Again, that static VPN is only as good as its last patch or update. With moving target defense, we're able to take that burden off of you, right? So we can proactively patch and update the traffic nodes that form the remote access bridge, giving you a better overall security posture. So that's the first one. The second one is that disposable intermediate, the virtual desktop, right? A static VPN is a direct connection from that user's local computer into your OT network. This is one of the kind of cardinal sins in operational environments, because you don't trust what that maybe third party or vendor has been doing, right? Again, the doctor might clean their hands a bunch of times, but I want to control that process. So having that disposable intermediate is just a way for me to know exactly what happened. And it's a lot easier to record and control.
Yeah,
And then
I'm
the
all
third,
about the, go ahead.
no, sorry.
Go ahead.
So then the third way in which a static VPN is different from a moving target defense network. Oh geez, I lost my train of thought. But it's the overall, I would say, access control level and how quickly you can update those rules, right? It's not going back to different firewalls, embedded firewalls. It's I can apply maybe to a group of users what profile they should get, and it's a consideration standardized across many different vendor classes, right? So it's that ease of administration and kind of reducing that burden that otherwise balloons at scale.
Do you have any SSO integrations, and what about MFA?
Yeah, of course. So in terms of single sign-on, there are integrations with Okta. I mean, I guess today's not the best day to talk about that given their recent troubles, but do integrate with OAuth 2.0 providers. We do also have SAML integrations. I know Scott mentioned that Iconics is working with SAML as well. And then Microsoft single sign-on, right? So you bring your Office 365 email and you can immediately log into the appropriate organizations.
Forgive me, but did you answer the part about what about MFA?
I completely didn't. So let me go ahead and answer that now. From an MFA perspective, again, that's temporary one-time passwords, right? So those are the 6-digit codes that you have on that app on your phone, whether it's Microsoft Authenticator, Google Authenticator, Duo, Authy, there's a whole bunch of different branded options for that. You scan the QR code and you get the codes. And then hardware tokens, so that would be the YubiKeys of the world, RSA Secure ID, that portfolio of tools. There are also biometrics for certain capacities, whether it's on your iPhone or things like that. So Face ID, Touch ID.
Now I'm going to switch over to Scott and pick on him for a little bit. Where can somebody go to find more information about Iconics cybersecurity?
Okay, you can visit the Iconics website, iconics.com. And there's information there. And then there's also iconics.com/cert, CERT, for additional information. You can sign up and subscribe to our cybersecurity updates there.
And I have one final question, and then I'm going to pop back on with my little closer slides. If somebody wants to join the Iconics SI program, how do they do that?
Okay, very simple. Visit iconics.com/SI. That'll take you to a page where you can register online to join the program. So all the information is up there on the website.
Thank you.
Please,
go ahead.
Please contact us if you have any further information on that. Go ahead, Lisa.
Sure. I would ask that Ben and Scott, why don't you go ahead and pop your email address into the chat box for anybody who wants to contact you directly. And in the meantime, I've got my little closing spiel here. Emily's gone ahead and put the last couple slides up for us. On behalf of CSIA, I would like to thank our moderator, Amanda, and our panelists, Ben and Scott, for this informative discussion, and Yuki for his assistance as well. I would also like to thank Iconics for sponsoring this event, and of course, thank you for attending. I'd like to remind you that a recording will be available for viewing within the next couple of days. Be sure to bookmark the CSIA events calendar so you don't miss any upcoming events. One last thing, be sure to check your spam folder for any CSIA emails you might have missed. Even better, whitelist CSIA so you can stay up to date. This concludes our program for today. Once again, thank you for joining us and have a great day.
Thank you.